The morning began like any other in the small, peaceful town. The sun rose slowly, casting a soft orange glow over the rows of houses, neatly lined trees, and quiet streets. Children were getting ready for school. Parents were sipping their coffee, and the air felt calm and familiar. It was the kind of morning where nothing strange usually happened. On the corner of Maple Street, just a few blocks from the local elementary school, an old yellow school bus stood parked. At first, it blended in with the normal scene. School buses were common in the area. In fact, most people who passed by didn't even take a second look. But there was something slightly unusual about this bus. It had been parked in the same spot since very early in the morning, earlier than the first school bell. The engine wasn't running. The windows were slightly fogged, and no one had been seen going in or out. Usually, buses came and went quickly, picking up students or waiting at designated stops. This one just stayed. A jogger named Mr. Collins was the first person to notice. He ran past the bus at 6 a.m. and saw it parked quietly on the side of the road. When he returned from his usual 5-mile loop around the park, the bus hadn't moved. He slowed his pace as he passed it again, curious, but then brushed it off. Probably a driver taking a break, he thought. 2 hours later, as the neighborhood got busier, more people began to notice. Parents walked their children to school. Cars moved in and out of driveways, and the bus still sat there like a silent guest no one invited. A woman pushing a stroller glanced at the bus with a puzzled expression. Another man walking his dog gave it a second look. Still, no one thought to call anyone because in their town, nothing bad ever really happened. A few blocks away, Officer Daniel Martinez started his morning patrol shift. He had been working in this town for nearly 8 years and knew the streets like the back of his hand. His partner wasn't a person, it was a loyal, intelligent German shepherd named Rex. Rex had been trained to detect unusual scents, alert his partner to anything suspicious, and keep an eye on things others might miss. Together, they had solved more than a few mysterious cases that no one expected in such a quiet place. Officer Martinez drove slowly through the residential area, sipping his coffee and nodding at a group of kids waiting for the bus. Rex sat alert in the back seat of the patrol car, ears pricked, tail slightly wagging as he watched everything carefully through the window. He was a calm dog most of the time, but very focused during duty. When the patrol car turned down Maple Street, Rex lifted his head a little higher. The bus came into view, sitting silently under a tall maple tree, as if it didn't belong there. Officer Martinez might have ignored it too, after all. It was just a bus, but Rex's sudden stillness made him look closer. The officer slowed the car and pulled over a few feet away. The bus looked like any other standard. Yellow school bus faded paint, black lettering, and slightly dusty windows. But it wasn't parked in a regular bus zone. It was at the edge of a residential area, not near any stop sign or school entrance. And more importantly, there was no driver in sight. Usually, a driver would sit behind the wheel or step out for a quick coffee. But here, everything looked. Still, Martinez glanced in the rearview mirror. Rex's eyes were fixed on the bus, ears forward, body slightly tense. The officer had worked with Rex long enough to know this wasn't random behavior. When Rex got quiet and focused like this, something usually followed Dot to make sure. Martinez circled around slowly in the patrol car. From every angle, the bus looked the same, parked, empty, and silent. He could hear the distant laughter of children walking to school. A crossing guard waved at him as he passed. But the bus stood like a secret, waiting to be told. Meanwhile, the community carried on. A small group of parents near the corner whispered about the bus. "Isn't that the same bus from this morning?" One woman asked. "Yeah, I saw it earlier too," another replied. "Strange, it's still here. Maybe it broke down?" A little boy tugged on his mother's hand. "Mom, why is the bus sleeping?" he asked innocently. His words made the adults chuckle nervously, but deep down, everyone started feeling a small hint of unease they couldn't quite explain. Officer Martinez decided to park his car nearby and step out. The gravel crunched under his boots as he approached the bus slowly. Rex jumped out too, tail wagging lightly but body alert. The officer didn't sense danger, not yet, but something about the situation didn't fit. He placed his hand on the cool metal of the bus's side and peered through the front windshield. The inside was dark, but through the slightly fogged glass, he could make out the row of seats. No one seemed to be inside. No bags, no jackets, no driver's cap, nothing. Just an empty bus sitting like it had been forgotten. Rex circled the vehicle, nose low to the ground. He was trained to notice the smallest detail, a scent, anything out of place. Martinez watched carefully as his partner sniffed near the wheels, the door, and the back end of the bus. The dog's posture changed slightly, his ears perked, and his tail stiffened. He let out a short, low bark, not loud or frantic, but enough to get Martinez's attention. It was Rex's way of saying, "Something's not right here." Martinez stepped back and looked around. It was still a calm morning. The birds chirped, a light breeze moved the leaves, and cars passed by as usual. Yet, standing there, he could feel that quiet, subtle tension, the kind that told him there was more to the story than what met the eye. By now, a few curious neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk across the street. An elderly man with a cane shaded his eyes with his hand to get a better look. Two teenagers pointed at the bus, whispering to each other. Even a teacher walking to the nearby school paused for a moment to observe the scene. The bus, once ignored, had suddenly become the center of attention. Martinez didn't want to cause alarm, so he kept his voice calm when he radioed in. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12, he said. "I've got an unoccupied school bus parked at the corner of Maple and 3rd. It's been here for a while. No visible driver. Requesting a quick check on the registration." The dispatcher's calm voice came through the radio. "Copy that. Unit 12. Stand by." While waiting, Martinez paced slowly, keeping his eyes on the vehicle. Rex stayed close, giving short, quiet wafts now and then, as if trying to tell him something he couldn't fully understand. The bond between them was strong. Martinez trusted Rex's instincts more than most things. After a minute, the dispatcher replied, "Unit 12, that bus is registered to the district, but it's not on any active route this morning. Do you want us to send backup?" Martinez glanced at Rex, who was now staring fixedly at the back of the bus. He could feel the hairs on the back of his own neck stand up, not from fear, but from awareness. Something wasn't adding up. Double quotes, yes, he answered slowly. "Send another unit. I'll stay on scene." The longer the bus sat there, the stranger it felt. A few parents gently steered their kids away from the area, not because they knew something was wrong, but because they felt it in the air. It was the kind of moment when the ordinary world starts to feel just a little too quiet. Rex gave another short bark, a little louder this time. Martinez knelt beside him, resting a hand on the dog's strong shoulder. "Easy, buddy," he said softly. But inside he was thinking the same thing Rex was sensing, whatever was going on. This was no simple parking mistake. A light breeze blew across the street, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and distant school lunches being prepared. The yellow bus, old but sturdy, seemed to stand heavier than before, like it held a secret inside its metal shell. And though no one around them knew it yet, that secret was about to bring the entire town, and soon the nation, to attention. For now, all anyone could see was a quiet street, a parked bus, and a canine dog who wouldn't stop watching. Rex had never been wrong before. In all his years working with Officer Daniel Martinez, every time he gave that sharp, alert bark, something unusual followed. It wasn't always something dangerous. Sometimes it was just something odd or out. of place, but Rex's instincts were sharper than most people could ever imagine. On that quiet morning, standing near the yellow school bus, Rex's body language changed completely. His ears tilted forward, his tail became still, and his deep brown eyes fixed on the back of the bus like it held a story only he could sense. Officer Martinez had seen this look hundreds of times. It meant pay attention. It meant Rex had picked up something that the human eye couldn't catch. Martinez trusted his partner more than any piece of equipment in the patrol car. A light breeze brushed past, carrying the soft sound of children playing in the distance. School bells hadn't rung yet, but the neighborhood was slowly coming alive. A few cars passed by, slowing down as curious drivers glanced at the strange scene. A police car, a quiet bus, and a canine dog who clearly wasn't playing Rex walked around the bus again, nose low to the ground, sniffing along the edges as if tracing an invisible line. He stopped near the door, lifted his head slightly, and gave another sharp bark. It wasn't loud or aggressive. It was controlled, deliberate, and focused. Officer Martinez followed his gaze. He crouched down and looked closer at the door. It was locked, but that wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the way Rex pressed his nose against the lower corner, sniffed deeply, and gave a soft, rumbling growl, not a threatening one, but the kind that said, "There's something here you need to look at." Just then, the sound of another patrol car came from down the street. Officer Sarah Thompson pulled up beside him. She had been his colleague for years, and the moment she saw Rex's posture, she raised her eyebrows. "He's got that look again, hasn't he?" she said, stepping out of the car. "Yeah," Martinez replied quietly. "He's been on edge since we got here. Something's off with this bus." Sarah walked around the other side of the bus, scanning carefully. She tried the back emergency door. It was locked too. She peered through the glass windows, but the sunlight hit the foggy glass, making it hard to see clearly inside. The bus remained still, like it was holding its breath. Meanwhile, Rex didn't let up. He moved to the back of the bus and sniffed again. His tail stiffened and he pawed lightly at the ground, as if trying to draw their attention to a specific spot. Martinez watched him carefully. He had learned early on not to question these signs. If Rex said there was something to look at, there was. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered now. They stayed on the sidewalk, whispering to one another. A few of them had their phones out, recording short clips of the scene, not because they expected anything big to happen, but because the situation felt unusual. In their quiet town, even a parked bus with police around it became a topic of interest. "Do you think it's stolen?" Sarah asked as she came back around to Martinez. "I don't know," Martinez replied. "Dispatch said it's registered to the district, but it's not supposed to be here today. And Rex doesn't usually react like this unless he means it." Rex circled once more and finally sat near the back wheels. It was something he often did when he was sure about a scent. His ears were forward, and he stared at the bus like he was waiting for it to reveal its secret. Sarah glanced at him. "He's pointing, isn't he?" "Yeah," Martinez said with a small nod. "That's his found something stance." The dispatcher's voice came through Martinez's radio again. "Unit 12, Unit 7. We've checked the bus number with the transportation department. That bus is not currently assigned to any driver today. They're checking if it was reported for maintenance or storage." Martinez replied, "Copy that. We'll maintain position until we get more info." Rex suddenly gave a short, low bark, just one. He leaned forward and sniffed again at the lower part of the bus, near the metal panels. It was as if something behind that wall had caught his full attention. Sarah leaned down, tapped the metal lightly, and then looked at Martinez. "There's something weird about this," she said softly. "It looks like standard paneling, but it doesn't sound quite the same as the others." Martinez nodded. "I hear it too. They didn't open anything yet. They needed authorization, but both officers could feel the shift in the air. It was the kind of shift that happens before a story turns. A few more minutes passed. The children had gone into the school now, and the streets were quieter. The curious neighbors still watched from a distance. Rex moved toward the front of the bus again, sniffing along the wheels. He stopped near the driver's seat window and stood on his hind legs, pressing his front paws gently against the side of the bus to get a better sniff. Martinez steadied him with a soft touch on his harness. Rex's nose twitched fast. Then, without warning, he let out a clear, sharp bark that echoed across the street. That bark made everyone turn their heads. It wasn't aggressive. It was alert, serious, and precise. The kind of bark Rex only used when he was absolutely sure something unusual was nearby. Martinez didn't say anything for a moment. He just watched his partner work. Sarah looked at him. "That's it, isn't it?" "He's locked onto something." "Yeah," Martinez replied. His voice was calm, but inside, he felt that quiet pulse of adrenaline. The good kind. The kind that told him they were about to uncover something important. The wind blew gently through the maple trees, rustling the leaves. The bus still hadn't moved an inch. It sat there like it had been waiting for someone to finally notice it. And now, someone had dashed Rex down an elderly man across the street leaned on his cane and asked aloud, "What's going on, officer?" Martinez gave a polite smile. "Just a routine check, sir. Please stay back on the sidewalk." The man nodded but kept watching. Others did too. It wasn't fear that filled the air now. It was curiosity, quiet but powerful. Everyone could sense that this wasn't just a bus. Sarah took a small flashlight from her belt and shone it through the driver's side window, but the glass was too fogged to give her a clear view. She tried wiping it with her sleeve, but the fog was on the inside. "That's strange," she muttered. "Why would it be fogged like that on the inside if no one's in there?" Martinez gave a thoughtful look. "Maybe it's been sitting here longer than we think." Rex gave another low bark, shorter this time, as if reminding them that he was still waiting for them to figure it out. Martinez gave his partner a gentle pat on the shoulder. "Good boy, we hear you." Sarah walked around again, this time paying close attention to every seam of the bus. The paint was chipped in a few places. The tires were slightly dusty, but not flat. Nothing about it screamed emergency, but it also didn't feel normal. And when something doesn't feel normal, Rex was usually right. The radio crackled again. "Unit 12. Transportation Department confirms the bus should be in the storage yard today. No one has authorization to park it where you are. They want it checked." Sarah and Martinez exchanged a look. This wasn't just a random parked vehicle anymore. It officially wasn't supposed to be there. Martinez felt that quiet knot in his chest tighten just a little. He crouched down again and looked under the bus. Nothing moved, nothing shifted, but he noticed small details he hadn't before, slight scratches near the back wheel, as if something had been dragged or adjusted. He stood back up slowly. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we might need to call for the inspection team. This is looking more serious." Sarah nodded. "I agree. Rex isn't letting this go." Rex paced in front of the bus, not nervously, but with focused energy. His training had kicked in completely now. His movements were sharp and intentional. Every step meant something. The neighborhood had gone from quiet curiosity to quiet anticipation. Even the birds seemed to have stopped singing. The breeze still carried through the maple leaves, and the soft hum of distant traffic felt like background noise in a much bigger story. Martinez spoke gently to Rex. "Okay, buddy, show me again." Rex circled, stopped near the back wheels, and gave a firm bark. He then sat, ears alert, tail straight. It was his clearest signal. Sarah whispered, "He's saying it's back here." "Yeah," Martinez said softly. "Something's back here." They didn't need to force anything yet. Protocol said they had to wait for authorization to open or inspect. But one thing was certain. The bus wasn't just an old vehicle left behind. Rex had made sure everyone knew it carried something more than what met the eye dot as they waited for the inspection team to arrive. Martinez leaned against his car, keeping his eyes on the bus. Rex stood beside him, never taking his gaze off the vehicle. The dog's breathing was steady, his posture strong. Sarah looked at them both. "You ever notice," she said quietly, "how he knows before any of us do?" Martinez smiled slightly. "Yeah, he's got better instincts than half the department." The neighbors slowly started stepping back, sensing this wasn't just a curious moment anymore. The street grew quieter. The bus sat under the shade of the big maple tree, surrounded by soft whispers and silent questions. And through it all, Rex didn't move. His sharp bark had started something. What came next would be bigger than anyone expected. But in that moment, it was just a quiet street, a yellow bus, 2 officers, and one very smart canine who refused to ignore what he sensed. The inspection team arrived just as the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, shining through the leaves of the big maple tree. The street had grown quieter. Most children were already inside their classrooms, and the sound of their distant laughter mixed with the soft rustling of the breeze. The yellow bus remained exactly where it had been since sunrise, still, silent and strange. Officer Daniel Martinez stood next to his patrol car, arms crossed, eyes steady. Beside him, Rex stayed on alert, his gaze locked on the back of the bus as if he was guarding a secret no one else knew yet. Officer Sarah Thompson walked around the bus one more time, just to be sure nothing had changed. It hadn't. The first vehicle from the inspection team pulled up slowly. Out stepped a transport safety officer, followed by 2 more officers carrying simple inspection equipment. They were calm but focused when a police canine signaled something unusual. They knew it was worth paying attention to. "Morning," the lead inspector greeted Martinez. "This the bus?" "Yeah," Martinez replied. "Been here since early morning. No driver, no movement. Rex has been locked onto the back end for over an hour now." The inspector nodded and crouched down to look under the bus, shining a flashlight into the shadows beneath it. He murmured softly. "It doesn't look like it was abandoned by accident." Rex gave a quiet huff, almost like he was agreeing. His tail flicked once, and he lowered his head again, sniffing near the back wheels. Sarah pointed out the small scratches they had noticed earlier. "See that?" she said. "It's like something was dragged or shifted around. Not deep, but not normal either." The inspector ran his hand lightly over the scratches, frowning slightly. "That's interesting," he said. "This isn't the usual wear and tear from a bus route." A couple of neighbors still watched from their porches. They weren't being loud, just quietly observing. Something about the scene made people curious, but also a little uneasy, like watching the opening of a mystery they couldn't quite understand. Martinez gently waved to them. "Please stay back, folks. We'll have this cleared soon." The lead inspector stepped up to the bus door. It was locked, just like before. He pulled out a tool to unlock it safely without causing damage. There was a faint metallic click, and the door slowly creaked open, letting out a musty smell of stale air. Sunlight slid into the dark interior, revealing row after row of empty seats. But Rex didn't move toward the front door. He stayed near the back wheels, still focused on the lower section. That made the inspector pause. "He's not interested in the inside?" Martinez shook his head. "Nope. He's been locked on that same spot this whole time." The inspector climbed onto the bus carefully, shining his light down the aisle. Everything inside looked ordinary: worn seats, dusty windows, and the faint smell of old vinyl. It was quiet. Too quiet. Meanwhile, Martinez knelt down beside Rex. "Where is it, buddy?" he asked softly. Rex sniffed along the lower metal panel once more and gave a short, crisp bark. He then pawed gently at the panel, as if saying here. Sarah leaned down and tapped the panel again. This time, everyone nearby could hear it. The sound was different, not the usual solid thump of a bus wall. It was hollow. The inspector stepped out of the bus and joined them at the back. "That's not normal," he said. "There shouldn't be a hollow panel like that down there." Martinez nodded. "That's what I thought." The team began a careful inspection of the back section. They traced their fingers along the seams of the panel, looking for anything out of place. It didn't take long to notice that one section of the metal was slightly newer than the rest. It blended well, but not perfectly. Sarah tilted her head. "Do you see that?" she whispered. "It's like someone added this later." The inspector ran his hand along the line again. "Exactly. It's not factory built. It's been modified." Rex gave another short bark, this time a bit louder. The sound echoed down the quiet street. The inspector exchanged a look with Martinez. That was all the confirmation they needed. "Okay," the inspector said calmly. "We're going to open it carefully." While they prepared their tools, Martinez gently guided Rex a few steps back. The dog didn't want to move. He stayed with his body low, ears forward, and nose pointed toward the panel. His instincts told him that the secret of this quiet bus lay right there. The metal made a soft scraping sound as the team worked to open the hidden panel. Bit by bit, the edges loosened. A warm breeze passed through the street, carrying the faint smell of the bus interior. Neighbors leaned a little closer from their yards, whispering. Nobody wanted to miss what was about to be uncovered. Finally, with one last careful pull, the panel popped open. A small hidden compartment, tucked perfectly beneath the seats, was revealed. It was larger than expected, deep and neatly built, like someone had gone to great lengths to make it blend in with the rest of the bus. A moment of silence followed. The inspector crouched lower and shone his flashlight inside. "Well," he said softly, "this isn't just an old bus." Sarah's eyebrows rose. "That's a custom compartment." The inspector nodded. "Very custom. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." Rex moved forward again, sniffing at the opening. His nose twitched quickly, and he let out a low sound from his throat, a sound Martinez recognized immediately. It wasn't a warning bark. It was his "I found it" sound. Martinez felt a small rush of excitement mixed with a quiet seriousness. "Good boy," he whispered, resting a hand on Rex's back. The inspection team carefully examined the inside of the compartment. It was clean, almost too clean. No dust, no random clutter, no forgotten tools. It looked as if someone had recently used it or planned to use it again. Sarah tilted her head, frowning thoughtfully. "You know what's strange?" she said. "Most old buses get messy over time. But this looks like it's been maintained. Like someone came prepared." The inspector nodded. This was definitely planned. Martinez walked around the bus slowly, letting the details sink in. An empty bus. No driver. A hidden compartment. And Rex, whose instincts had guided them straight to it. This wasn't a simple parking mistake. It was something carefully arranged. The sound of distant sirens echoed faintly. More officials were on their way, alerted by the unusual discovery. This was no longer just a local matter. When a hidden compartment was found in a registered school bus, it meant bigger questions had to be answered. A local news reporter who lived nearby had heard. The chatterer was now standing at the edge of the crowd, holding a small camera. The neighbors whispered even more now, their curiosity growing. The quiet morning had turned into a scene that no one on Maple Street would forget. Sarah glanced at Martinez. "You think this was left here on purpose?" "Maybe," Martinez replied. "Or maybe someone expected it to be overlooked." But Rex wasn't going to let that happen. The inspector gently closed the panel without sealing it, leaving it ready for the arriving team who would document and handle the rest of the investigation. They wanted to keep everything just as it was. Rex sat down beside Martinez, panting lightly but never looking away from the bus. His tail gave a small, steady wag, the kind he usually had after doing exactly what he was trained to do. Martinez looked down at him with quiet pride. "You did good, partner," he whispered. The neighborhood now had a buzz of quiet conversations. Some people guessed the bus might have been stolen. Others thought it might have been part of something bigger. Nobody had the full picture yet, but everyone felt the weight of what had just been found. The arriving officers cordoned off the area, gently asking neighbors to step back. The bus that had seemed ordinary only a few hours ago was now the center of serious attention. Flashing lights from the additional patrol cars reflected off its faded yellow paint, giving the quiet street an unusual glow. The inspector stood back and let the new team take over. He spoke quietly to Martinez. "If your canine hadn't noticed this, it might have sat here for days, maybe even weeks." Martinez nodded. "Yeah, he's got a gift." Sarah gave Rex a gentle scratch behind the ears. "And good timing," she added with a small smile. More officials arrived, carrying cameras and equipment. They moved carefully, documenting every inch of the bus. Meanwhile, the first few pieces of information were shared with higher authorities. What had started as a quiet morning in a peaceful neighborhood was beginning to grow into something much larger than anyone there had expected. And through it all, Rex stayed close to the bus, calm and alert, watching the people work. He didn't need praise or applause. This was his job, and he was good at it. The yellow bus, once just another vehicle on the street, had revealed a hidden story inside its walls. No one yet knew what the full story was, but one thing was certain. It wouldn't be staying quiet for long. By the time the sun reached its highest point in the sky, Maple Street was no longer just a quiet neighborhood corner. What had started as a normal school day had now turned into the center of everyone's attention. The yellow school bus, which had once blended into the background, now sat behind a row of bright orange cones and yellow tape, gently fluttering in the breeze. Patrol cars lined the street. The sound of radios softly crackling filled the air. Officer Daniel Martinez stood near the front of the bus, watching as the new team of investigators worked methodically. Rex, his loyal canine partner, sat close by, calm and focused as always. His work was done for now, but his presence alone still made people feel like something big was unfolding. Sarah Thompson walked over with a cup of water and handed it to Martinez. "It's already all over town," she said quietly, looking at the growing number of people gathered on the other side of the yellow tape. "Half the neighbors have probably told the whole county by now." Martinez took a sip and nodded. "That doesn't surprise me. In a town this small, news spreads faster than any radio signal." Across the street, small groups of neighbors whispered to one another, their faces full of curiosity. Some had their phones out, filming short clips. Others were simply standing quietly, trying to understand how an ordinary bus could cause such a commotion. A delivery driver, who had pulled over, leaned on his truck and asked, "Is it true they found something inside?" No one gave him a clear answer. The officers on duty had been instructed not to share any specific details yet, but the way everyone was acting careful, focused, alert made it clear that this was not just about a parked bus anymore. Inside the investigation zone, the team carefully documented the hidden compartment. They took photos, measurements, and notes, marking every small detail. Nothing was forced or rushed. It was quiet, careful work, the kind that told Martinez this was going to be more than just a local matter. A supervisor from the district transportation department arrived next, looking pale and concerned. She introduced herself to the officers and stared at the bus for a long moment before saying, "This shouldn't be here. I checked this morning. This bus was supposed to be at the yard." Martinez watched her reaction closely. You're sure about that? Absolutely, she replied. We log every vehicle daily. If it's not signed out, it stays in storage. This one shouldn't have been moved at all. Sarah exchanged a glance with Martinez. It wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was something that reached beyond their small town patrol. The transportation supervisor walked closer, peering through the windows. Her voice lowered to almost a whisper. We've never had anything like this happen before. How does a bus just disappear from the yard and end up here? Martinez didn't answer right away. He looked at Rex, who sat perfectly still, as if listening to the conversation too. Sometimes, silence spoke louder than words. By early afternoon, local news vans began to arrive. Reporters stood just outside the perimeter, setting up their cameras and adjusting their microphones. They didn't know the details yet, but they knew something big had happened. News crews had a way of finding stories before they were fully told. A young reporter approached one of the officers at the tape. "Excuse me," she said politely. "Can you tell us what's going on?" The officer shook his head. "All I can say is that it's under investigation." That one line was enough to spark even more curiosity. The whispers among the neighbors grew louder. Some guessed it was an old bus that had been forgotten. Others thought it was part of something larger. Nobody had answers yet, but everyone had a theory. At the center of all this, Martinez remained calm. He had been through many tense moments before, and he knew how quickly rumors could spin out of control. He also knew that the truth would eventually speak for itself. Rex shifted slightly, letting out a quiet sigh as he lay down next to his handler. The golden sunlight glowed softly on his fur. To him, this was just another day of doing his job, though he couldn't possibly know how far his sharp instincts would reach this time. Back inside the taped-off area, the investigation team finished their first round of inspection. Their lead investigator, a tall man with a calm voice, approached Martinez and Sarah. "We're finding more than we expected," he said quietly. "This isn't something someone threw together last night. This compartment was built carefully. It's been here a while." Sarah crossed her arms, thinking, "So someone planned this?" The investigator nodded. "Exactly. And the fact that the bus ended up parked in a residential area like this, that's not random." Martinez didn't need to say it out loud, but he felt it. Rex had stopped something bigger before it could quietly disappear. Meanwhile, at the local elementary school just a few blocks away, teachers were trying to calm curious students who had seen the flashing lights. A few of them had asked, "Why are there so many police cars?" The teachers simply reassured them that everything was safe. But the truth was, the entire town could feel something unusual was happening. Around 2 p.m., a group of officials from outside the town arrived. Their presence added a quiet weight to the scene. They moved with calm authority, asking questions, inspecting the bus, and reviewing every detail carefully. Martinez knew what that meant. This was no longer just a local matter. It was now officially a case of national interest. Sarah stood beside him, speaking softly. "You know what this means, right? This little bus is about to be on every news channel by tonight." Martinez gave a slow nod. "Yeah, all because Rex decided not to ignore it." Rex lifted his head slightly at the sound of his name, as if knowing they were talking about him. His tail wagged once. Then he went back to watching the people work. A light drizzle began to fall, soft and gentle, but no one left. Umbrellas opened, jackets were pulled tighter, and reporters continued recording. The bus sat quietly as raindrops slid down its yellow paint, reflecting the flashing lights from the patrol cars. On the other side of town, calls began flooding the local police station. People wanted to know what was happening. Some offered tips, some just wanted answers. The small station had never received so much attention in a single day. Back at the scene, the transportation supervisor returned after making a few phone calls. Her expression had changed from worried to unsettled. "I checked everything twice," she told Martinez. "That bus was locked in the yard last night. Only authorized drivers have keys. I can't explain how it ended up here." Martinez nodded slowly. "We'll find out." "We always do." She looked at Rex with a soft smile. "That dog of yours must be something special." Martinez looked down at his partner and couldn't help but smile. "Yeah, he really is." As the day went on, the neighborhood grew quieter again. The initial rush of curiosity gave way to a kind of stillness, the kind that happens when everyone realizes the story isn't over yet. People returned to their homes, but their minds stayed on Maple Street. They would talk about this over dinner, over morning coffee, and probably for weeks to come. The news reports started airing before sunset. They didn't have all the details, but they had enough. A K-9 unit in a small suburban town alerted officers to a parked school bus. Inside, investigators found a hidden compartment. Authorities are now looking into how the vehicle ended up there. Those few sentences were enough to make phones buzz and conversations spark across the country. It wasn't every day that a parked bus turned into a headline. Martinez leaned against his patrol car, listening quietly to the radio chatter. He could feel the weight of the story growing, moving far beyond their town. And through it all, Rex stayed by his side, loyal and calm, the same way he had been from the beginning. Sarah walked over and joined him. "You ever think," she said with a little smile, "how something so big can start with something so small?" A single bark. Martinez glanced down at Rex. "Yeah," he said softly. "That bark changed everything today." The drizzle had stopped, leaving the air cool and still. The bus remained taped off, now guarded by officers who would stay through the night. Tomorrow, experts would come in to finish their work. But for today, the discovery had already sent ripples through the town, the district, and soon the country. No one could yet predict what the investigation would uncover in the days ahead. But one thing was already clear. What happened on Maple Street wasn't just a random event. It was the beginning of a story that had reached far beyond the quiet neighborhood, and it had all started with a single dog and a single bark. The morning after the bus was found, the small town woke up with a feeling it hadn't felt in years. Maple Street, usually quiet and calm, had become the talk of every home, every shop, and every school hallway. People who didn't even live nearby had started visiting, driving slowly past the corner just to catch a glimpse of the yellow school bus that had changed everything. Reporters were still stationed at the edge of the street. They had spent the night setting up lights and cameras, waiting for any new update. Police tape still surrounded the bus, gently fluttering in the crisp morning breeze. The air smelled of wet pavement from the light rain the night before. Officer Daniel Martinez stood beside his patrol car with Rex at his side. The sun had just started to rise, casting a soft golden light over the neighborhood. For most people, this was just another day. But for him and Rex, it felt like the calm after a storm. They had been the first ones on the scene. And now, they were the reason everyone was talking. "Good morning, partner," Martinez said softly, bending down to pat Rex on the shoulder. Rex gave a quiet wag of his tail, eyes alert, ears perked. Even after everything that had happened, he was ready to work again. That was just who he was, a loyal K-9 with instincts sharper than most humans could ever understand. Sarah Thompson joined them, carrying 2 cups of hot coffee. "Here," she said, handing one to Martinez. "You're going to need it. Reporters have been here since before sunrise." Martinez gave a small smile. "I can tell. I think this is the most attention Maple Street has ever had." Sarah chuckled softly. "It's all over the news. I turned on the TV this morning, and there it was. They even showed Rex's photo. You two are famous now." Martinez looked down at Rex, who tilted his head like he understood. "I guess you're the star of the show, buddy," he said with a grin. As the sun climbed higher, more people came by. Some neighbors waved from their porches, smiling proudly at Rex as if he belonged to everyone, not just Martinez. Others stopped to thank the officers for their work. There was a new sense of connection in the air, like the whole town shared the story together. The investigation team arrived shortly after. They carefully continued their work, going over every inch of the bus again. This time, they brought specialized equipment and additional experts. The discovery of the hidden compartment had reached national agencies overnight. Now, people far beyond the town cared about this quiet little corner of Maple Street. Martinez and Rex watched as the team worked. They weren't part of the technical investigation anymore, but everyone acknowledged them with nods of respect as they passed. One of the lead investigators approached them with a friendly smile. "You two started something big," he said. "If it wasn't for your partner, we might have never found this bus in time." Martinez nodded humbly. "Rex has good instincts. I just follow his lead." The investigator crouched slightly and gave Rex a gentle pat. "He's got quite a reputation now. I heard his story reached the national unit overnight." Rex didn't understand the praise, of course. He just enjoyed the gentle attention and kept his focus on the work around him. For him, it was never about the headlines. It was just about doing what he was trained to do. Meanwhile, the people of the town followed every update closely. The local bakery gave out free coffee to officers working the scene. Children who normally ran down Maple Street now stood quietly at the corners, watching with wide eyes. A few of them even whispered to each other, saying things like, "That's the dog who found the bus." Later that afternoon, the local elementary school invited Martinez and Rex to visit. The principal called it a thank you visit. The moment Rex walked through the doors, the children's faces lit up. They clapped and cheered, not fully understanding the details of what had happened, but knowing he had done something brave and important. Martinez smiled as the kids asked question after question. "Does he get treats when he does a good job?" One little boy asked. "Yes," Martinez replied with a laugh. "And he got an extra big one yesterday." Another girl raised her hand shyly. "Does he get scared?" Martinez looked down at Rex, who was calmly sitting by his side. "Rex is brave," he said gently. "But even when things are serious, what matters most is that he trusts me. And I trust him." The children clapped again, and Rex wagged his tail happily, enjoying the attention. Back on Maple Street, the scene slowly transformed. By the third day, the bus had been moved to a secure facility where the rest of the investigation would continue. The street was finally quiet again, but something had changed. The people who lived there now felt a story attached to their neighborhood, a story that had started with a dog who refused to ignore something unusual. News outlets continued to cover the case for days. Headlines appeared online and on TV. Canine hero alerts officers to suspicious bus. Small town dog. Big discovery. And Rex the canine. A bark that changed everything. Martinez never liked the spotlight, but he couldn't help but feel proud of his partner. In interviews, he made sure to say the same thing every time. Rex is the real hero. He listens to his instincts. I just make sure people listen to him too. Rex became a kind of local legend. Children drew pictures of him in their classrooms. A local cafe even named a new drink after him, the Rex Special, a caramel latte with extra foam, inspired by his soft golden brown fur. It was lighthearted and sweet, just like the mood that had spread across the town since the incident. But beneath the warmth of the community's pride, Martinez carried something else, a quiet reminder of how easily something hidden can sit in plain sight. If Rex hadn't barked that morning, the bus might have stayed there for who knows how long. That thought stayed with him. It made him respect his partner's instincts even more. A few weeks later, A small ceremony was held at the police department. Officers, local leaders, and neighbors gathered in front of the station. A few reporters showed up too. The mayor stepped up to the podium and spoke with a warm smile. "This town is proud of many things," she began. "Our schools, our families, our peaceful streets. But today, we're especially proud of one member of our police family. A loyal canine whose instincts and training helped uncover something much bigger than anyone expected. Rex reminded us all that sometimes the smallest sign can lead to the biggest discoveries." The crowd clapped and cheered as Rex sat obediently by Martinez's side, looking calm as ever. He didn't know what the applause meant, but he enjoyed seeing familiar faces smiling at him. The mayor presented Martinez with a framed certificate of appreciation, and then she leaned down to give Rex a shiny new collar tag shaped like a small star. "This is for Rex," she said kindly. "Our town's four-legged hero." The children in the crowd clapped the loudest. Someone even held up a small handmade sign that read, "Good boy, Rex." Martinez smiled and gave Rex a gentle pat. "You earned it, partner," he whispered. From that day forward, Maple Street carried a new story. Whenever someone passed the corner where the bus had been parked, they remembered that morning. They remembered how quiet it had been, how normal everything seemed, and how one single bark changed it all. Rex continued working as he always had. To him, nothing really changed. He didn't know he was on the news or that people around town admired him. He still rode in the patrol car every morning, still stuck his nose out the window to sniff the fresh air, and still wagged his tail when Martinez said his name. But Martinez saw him a little differently now. Not because of fame or headlines, but because that day reminded him of something powerful: trust. Trust between a handler and his canine partner. Trust in instincts. Trust in the idea that even in quiet places, paying attention can make a difference. Months later, when people spoke about the strange bus that appeared on Maple Street, they didn't just talk about what was inside it. They talked about the dog who found it. "Do you remember Rex?" They would say, "That dog is a hero." And in the end, that was his legacy. Not just the discovery, not just the headline, but the simple, powerful moment when a canine's sharp instincts and a single bark made a whole town pay attention. Martinez often walked Rex past that same corner during their evening patrols. The maple tree still stood there, tall and steady. The sidewalk was quiet again. Children played nearby. Life had gone back to normal, but the story lived on like a quiet echo. Rex would sometimes stop near the spot where the bus had been, sniff the air, and look around. Martinez would smile and say softly, "Yeah, buddy, I remember too." And then they'd keep walking. Partners, friends, a team that had changed something bigger than themselves without even knowing it.